Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your host, Jefferson Belford and Brian Hernandez. Brian, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Jeff. I'm doing really well. It's nice to be here back-to-back weeks, building that consistency again. I'm really excited. My Knicks, even though they keep blowing late game leads, they just keep winning, and it's pretty nice. And, it's feeling good right now. So I'm pretty excited. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Like you said, there's been, I think, in the middle of the season, you see stuff happen or you feel things that you don't like about your team. But
Mm-hmm.
if they're over 500, there's things to be happy about. You mentioned your Knicks. They're over five. They're 5 games over 500. I'm sure it was not a mindset of yours going into the
Not
season.
it.
So
Not
that's
even
something to be
close.
happy about. And the way how
Yeah.
my team started this season, being 13 games over 500, is not something that I envisioned. So uh, it feels good right now. But as we tighten up, get closer to the end of the season, you hope we get and we'll get to this in the
Mm-hmm.
podcast and in future podcasts as we're getting closer to the trade deadline. You do a few things to tighten up the screws a little bit, so you're
Mm-hmm.
picture perfect for your team, right? So
It's kind of
I
crazy.
can't complain.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to like now that you actually talk about it, like the beginning of the season for the Nets. Like I really think about it. It's like look at the off season that they had, where Kyrie and Katie are requesting trades and all this drama, and then mid or the start of the season, you have the whole Kyrie drama, him getting suspended. Pretty much everything that's happened so far, they should not be like this good right now. Like they should not have this record. Like they've definitely gone against the odds in that sense, and it's definitely impressive that you guys are 13 games over 500 halfway through the season so far. So very exciting.
Exactly. All right, perfect. So this is episode 46. Some of the topics that we're going to hit today are the panic meter, the panic or no panic for some of our underperforming teams, some that we believe would be achieving at this point, and supposedly, or not even supposedly, just are not at that level that we expected. Then we'll go over Luka Doncic and his MVP caliber season, but there's clearly some roster problems. We'll be addressing that. And then lastly, is it time for the Clippers to start considering blowing it up? Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, I am ready. Let's get to it.
All right, perfect. So, in the panic or no panic conversation, we'll be starting off with teams that we believe should be at a better pace than they are at right now. But um, I think we've talked about this in the past. Is that there's a lot of firepower in the NBA this year. There's a lot of teams that have intriguing and interesting storylines that they're playing out. And because of that, there is going to have to be some teams that just aren't performing at the level that you expected. It's just are could do a little bit better in that case. But
Mhm.
some of them of those teams, we will be assessing whether or not it is time to start panicking for them, or is it a place of not panicking? So let's start off with the Eastern Conference, and we'll start with the eight seed right now, the Miami Heat, who are sitting 3 games over 500 as of right now. Brian, what is your thoughts on the Heat? Is this a panic or no panic situation?
So I feel like I touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but I want to say if I'm the Miami Heat, I'm panicking right now. Like I'm sweating, and it's mostly exactly what you kind of just touched on. Of look how just strong the rest of the East is, and where do you actually stack up in that conference? And kind of where they are right now. Like the highest that I would ever see them is going to 6. And as the Miami Heat team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals, like that's not where you want to be. That is not where you should be. And they just haven't made any improvements. They've been waiting for like Kyle Lowry to like pick it up, and it's just not happening. I just don't really get their whole game plan as to what they're trying to do right now, just because it's just not working. And you think about like how does this team actually go from getting like a star, maybe just trading as many assets as possible on Tyler Hero or something like that. That's the only time I wouldn't panic. But like, as of now, this is kind of feeling like a wasted season. Right now, they're in a no man's zone, and as a team that's trying to win a championship, I feel like that's kind of, that kind of warrants some panic right now. What do you think?
Um, I think that I will be a little bit on the opposite side of that. Is I would say there's no panic, but there's no panic at the present moment, but there is panic for the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason why I would say there's panic is more about the cap situation, and team construction when you really think about it for the long run, right? Like there's about 3, 4 guys on this team that are making over $25 million a year. Obviously, that's eating up a large percentage of the cap.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys consume up nearly, it looks like nearly 55, 60% of the cap for that team. But if we're being honest, and it is a trend that we see across the league, is that all 4 of those players are injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Butler, even though he's had his amazing years, he's done honestly been brilliant since he's came to Miami. He's obviously shown this type of good play in his other previous teams, but he makes up 45 million dollars of that cap, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't be getting that money. I'm not saying that he isn't warranted, but that's when you compound that with like someone that you brought up earlier, Kyle Lowry, that's too much money. He's making nearly $30 million. Once again, that's nearly most of your cap right there, and you are not able to make a lot of changes around the margin. So like at this point, I agree with you. It may be around the time they start thinking about who's the piece that you want to keep at this moment. Is it Tyler or is it Bam? And who do you
Mm-hmm.
think is more pivotal for your long term growth? Because I don't think that there's a world where you trade Jimmy Butler, especially with that amount of money, unless if Tyler Hero becomes a complete superstar at some point here. But I think that I've always been fair to Tyler in saying that he does have star power, but like I don't think it's enough
Yep.
for it to move the needle for this team. Um, so that's where I think it really is a question where you decide what are you going to do in reinvesting some of that money you spent on your young guys and see if you could put a little bit more of a solid all around team around Jimmy Butler and see if you could. I know there's reports of it, but like see if you could get off of Kyle Lowry's contract as well.
Yeah, it's just like right now, like if you look at them, they're just like offensively, they just don't have enough. And like you say, you definitely don't move Jimmy, and you're trying to improve. I kind of like that thought process you had of like, is Bam the guy you want to keep? Because 3 years ago, Bam was considered like probably one of the best assets you can have in the league, and since then he really hasn't done anything. And Like the main reason why I kind of want to say panic is just like they're at, like we keep talking about, the East is has only gotten better and Miami's only stagnated. Like this season on offense, they're ranked 23rd in the league and then 6th on defense. So like their defense is really good, but if you compare their offense to last season where they were right now Miami is 23rd in offense. Last season they were actually 11th. So like they were playing at a better rate and they're just not scoring as much as they used to, and it's just something's definitely missing right now, and that's where it's how do you fix that?
Well, that's where I say like it does come down to like the injuries, right?
Yeah.
Like the injuries and because of where we're at in the season, it with this much good teams, like the margin of error is very slim at this
Hmm.
point, right? Like you have like someone like Tyler Hero who's missed like around 8, 9 games this
Yeah.
season. There's definitely been games that could have been swayed by him being on the court. In that case, Jimmy's missed some games as well. I don't have the exact numbers. I think it's relatively around. Actually, Jimmy's missed more games than even Tyler has missed. So like a lot of these things that are happening to them, in my mind, is because they are missing out on these guys that were reliable last year for them to throughout the whole season. They were actually one of those teams last year that were very very lucky with how consistently they were able to put the same players on the court. And then in that same case, I don't think Kyle Lowry is washed in any case, but like I do think that like at the stage that he is in his career, um, he is not the same player that you expected for that amount, and he's missed some games as well. And ironically, he has not missed more games than Jimmy Butler. But
Hmm.
it's not a Cal. It's not the Kyle Lowry you're grown accustomed to seeing is what you're seeing this season, and that's definitely played a part into how they're playing.
Yeah, the only, so 100% agree with everything. Definitely the injuries accounts for their slower start, because we keep saying like they're going to be a good team. The only thing is like Kyle Lowry being washed. It's a tough one because like you're saying, like is he a bad player right now? Like no, not at all. It's just that he's not a $28 million for this season type of player. So
Yeah.
in that kind of sense of like where he was even 3 4 years ago, he's washed compared to that guy. But like in the grand scheme of things, as a 36-year-old basketball player about to be 37 in what, in like a few months, he's pretty solid. He contributes a decent amount. It's just he's getting paid a little bit too much at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, you want to move on to the
Maybe
next team?
time to last I was going to
Yeah,
say
yeah, yeah.
is maybe time to restructure that deal.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he still has. He only has one more year after this, so yeah, maybe.
But like you mentioned, on to the next team. The next team is the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, this offseason, they took some steps in approach to have a win now mentality. And they are currently sitting in the ninth seed, which is, I believe, where they were to end the season last year. They're 2 games under 500. So there's a bit of a gap between them and the Heat. And they just do not look like the team that we've grown accustomed to seeing. So, Brian, is it panic or no panic time for the Hawks?
So I definitely think there's some levels to this. When I say like Miami Heat panic, I think that's like it's starting. It's the start of the panic. Like maybe you're starting to sweat a little bit and you're getting a little bit nervous. Your heart's starting to race Like that's kind of where like Miami is. Atlanta is just a full on, fire everywhere, screaming kind of panic of if that SpongeBob meme where like SpongeBob's in his own head and all the versions of SpongeBob are going crazy and the filing cabinets are on fire. That's kind of where Atlanta is at the moment. Like they it's bad. And I was very surprised because I have always just kind of disrespected Atlanta just because of the rivalry with the Knicks. So I in my heart of hearts I've actually thought Atlanta was actually going to be like a pretty decent team. Like I thought I really liked the DeJounte Murray move, but it's just not working out for them. Like they've
Yeah.
also had some players miss some time with health, but like not nearly as much as some of these other teams. Like a pretty normal amount. Um, and you really just look at it like this team is is just not good enough. You have John Collins pretty much like, yes, I want to be traded. Trey Young is now getting in talks of, oh, is he going to request a trade soon? And all these guys, the pieces are relatively better than it is when the Atlanta Hawks went to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago, but for some reason it's just not working. What do you think?
I agree. I just think that it feels like they're regressing when you look at it statistically on
Mm-hmm.
certain levels. You look at like net rating, that's something that they're trailing in compared to what they were last year. And just correct what I just said. They're actually the eighth seed last year, but yeah, they are regressing on a lot of the places where they last year were pretty good at.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, it's not like, and I know there's been some talk about Trey Young and him not being happy with his situation, and some people even assessing him some of the blame of like why this is going how it's going. But um, I don't think it is as much of Trey Young's fault that they're at where they're at. I think a little bit is about, and I think this is going to be prevalent with a lot of the teams that we say. And I didn't mention, I do believe this is panic time for them. But uh, with the teams that we assess and we talk about that we believe are panicking, a lot of it is going to come down to team construction. You brought in a guy like DeJounte Murray to help facilitate the offense, also with Trey Young. I understand that there's only one ball, but you do also expect that he elevates his game to a level that compensates to some of the stuff that they lost and losing Kevin Herter, right? Like Kevin Herter's having an amazing year right now for the
Mm-hmm.
Kings, right? But ironically, like if you're just looking at points, he has elevated his points beyond his career averages. So he's scoring around 20 points per game right now, shooting a slightly better 3 point percentage on DeJounte Murray's part. He's shooting better at the free throw line. Like these little marginal things, he's doing better, but like the fits on the court just don't look as good as you would have wanted it to be, and that's a problem. Honestly, I do chalk some of it up to these guys are just getting to know each other and play on the same court with one another, and that's going to take time and require like team chemistry to get there. But I think the biggest panic for me is not really what's happening on the court, but it's all of the noise that's coming from off of it. The John Collins trade is hanging like a dark cloud
Mm-hmm.
over the State Farm Arena. You know, like that's not that's not easy when you had to hear this for several years, and it feels like you're at the precipice of it all because it feels like it has to blow at some point.
Yeah.
Where you talk about this guy every year, that he's in trade rumors and nothing really happens of it. Either he's going to get fed up or the front office is going to take something lesser than they expected, and that's where the wins are starting to look like in the case for John Collins. But I also do think that it may be the right situation that gives them subtraction, addition by subtraction, right? Like not having, and I don't think John Collins is like a negative presence. He seems like a really good player, good teammate. In that sense, I just think that the negative cloud that is waving over their heads, all of their heads, because of that situation, is affecting how they play as well too. Clint Capella is kind of one of the bright spots of this team. He's always been a bright spot of this
Mm.
team. He's consistent in giving you exactly what you need, but like there is a massive, massive, massive issue with the drop off in my mind from the bench, the second unit from their starting lineup, and that's why
Yeah.
it's resulting to looking like what we see today at this point. But there's a few like bright sides on the second unit. Like AJ Griffin has had some good moments. Aaron Holiday has put a stamp on being a pretty good second unit guy as well. But I lastly will say that my biggest I think disappointment in this season is that it looks like we haven't really seen a true progression out of DeAndre Hunter
Yeah.
that you would want to have seen. In that first season, I know a lot of us felt like this might be the piece that was missing that would set this team into where it needs to be because, they looked really, really good with him on the court. And that obviously the injury definitely probably took a toll on him the last couple of years, but he's just not exactly what you expected when you drafted him, and then he had that first great season.
Yeah, it definitely is kind of surprising with DeAndre Hunter, especially. I mean, his biggest thing has been just injuries. Anytime he's looked really well, he just got injured for a while. Kind of reminds me of like Patrick Williams, but like DeAndre on Hunter is like a better version of the Patrick Williams situation with the Chicago Bulls. Even someone like they have a lot of like good pieces like Onyeka and Kongu. I'm personally a huge fan of, and I know a lot of Hawks fans are pretty big fans of him and want him to get even more minutes. It's just a little bit tough when you're behind, John Collins and Clint Capella, so there's not a lot of room for you. It's it's weird. Like the roster itself, like we keep talking about, it's a good roster. Like it's a solid roster. Where the biggest discrepancy I can see is like Trey Young's efficiency this season has been as bad as his rookie season. Like his rookie season, he was shooting really bad from the field. He's shooting pretty similar to there. He's shooting, 42% from, or not 42, 32% from three right now on seven attempts, and like compared to 38 last season. Like that little bit of difference, honestly, is pretty big for his game. And he's just like he's making 42% of his shots. Like he's just not as effective as it used to be. We talked a little bit last time too of the Nate McMillan kind of situation of he's almost going to step down. What's happening there? Like there's too many off the court things and just drama that's happening with with this team for you to like just not panic right now. And it's hard to really see like how does this get better. Of what do you fire the coach and hope somebody new, the actually brings up the spirits? Probably hard to actually say that's gonna happen. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know this team.
No, I agree. I think there's nothing more that I could add to that.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next team is the Toronto Raptors sitting in the 10th seed in the East as of right now. They are 4 games under 500 at a 19-23 record. Um, Brian, panic, no panic at this moment.
I'm gonna say no panic. I I know Toronto Raptors this year not been very good. They've been struggling. But I still feel like they compared to what like Atlanta has, where they have a lot of good pieces, but all there's a lot of off court drama. I don't feel like there's as much, especially in Toronto. I know there's a whole OG and Scotty situation, but like I don't think that's necessarily big enough for them to really, I don't know, for it to affect the rest of their team. They're just like super average, and we're super average with above average players right now. Like they're just not playing as good as they usually are. I wouldn't panic yet. I still think that there's something they can do. They still have some like good enough assets where if they want to make a move that they can. There's always been the talk of, do you trade OG and give maybe some more ball handling minutes to Scotty. Maybe that's something you want to do. You can still trade Gary Trent. You can still do all this stuff, and you can get a lot back from these players because they are really good. So, at the moment, if I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, I wouldn't panic. This is just you're a little bit set back from where you want to be right now. But you think about it, if Toronto goes on a run, right now they're 19-23, they go on a 6 game winning streak. Like, hey, you're not in a bad situation, and that can very easily happen in the NBA. So I wouldn't be too mad if you're a Toronto Raptors fan. But what do you think?
I think it's the opposite. I think
All
it
right.
is time to panic, and it's not panic. It's not panic in like you were saying, the sliding
Yeah.
scale of panic,
Hmm.
right? In my mind, panic means like reset the table in my mind.
Hmm.
And we obviously have seen how their GM, uh, and slipping my name right now,
Masai.
Mzai
Yeah.
Ujiri,
Yep.
how he's figured out ways to reset the table for their team time and time again, where he's retooled and kept everything in mind. I think my reason why I say panic, it's panic in the sense of like, hey, there may be some parts of this team that worked in the past, but now we have to reevaluate, right?
Hmm.
The one thing that I think about that is glaring to me about like some things that I like is Siakam is completely taken over. Like
Yep.
he's the team leader in rebounds and assists and in points. He's
Yep.
put his imprint on the team completely, and he's clearly the best player on the team. Scotty Barnes, starting this season, has, I wouldn't say regress, but he is not playing at that level that you
Mhm.
expected after that Rookie of the Year season. But I think he has a lot of time to figure that out. Like he's a young guy. We typically talk about the sophomore slump. He's just one of many people that has fallen victim to it. So I don't think that this is going to be something that happens for where it course corrects his career. You know what I mean? Like or alters his career, and he needs to course correct his career. Um, I think he's just it's an off season, right?
Yep.
And he'll figure it out. But I think the reason why I say it's time to panic is I think it's time to start evaluating where's my market at if I move a guy like Van Vliet, even in the case of someone that is doing amazing, Siakam, what do I get? How what do I get back in that case, right? Like, and if you get something back, what you would potentially get back in a Siakam trade or even a Fred Van Vliet trade is only going to set you up further in the future. Where in this point, like it's kind of how I feel um, about Miami Heat, but I didn't get to say is like it's a mixed bundle of like two directions you're going. Like you have that youth movement, and then you have a little bit of veterans presence that wants to win right now because they're at the back end of their careers, you know. So you don't want to leave a guy like Siakam playing at this level on a team where you're underachieving at the present moment. And I'll use something that you just said too to further confirm like something that I brought up last week. I've been saying it a little bit this week. It keeps on ringing a bell in my ear because it is the truth when JJ Redick said this is that parody distorts reality, right? Is like any team at this moment is not that far enough for them to make a jump into that playoff contention. But knowing the Raptors, knowing their GM, they're not fighting for playoff contention. They're fighting to be one of the better teams in the league, right? So there is the aspect of like trade for retooling. And I think if that's the case, you trade Fred VanVleet. And then there's the case of trading to get in the Wamby sweepstakes and you know rebuild it with him and Scotty if you get a chance. Then you trade Siakam as well, you know. But not a bad place, but it's not a good place that they're in right now. And then lastly, another thing that I was going to put into that parody distorts reality mindset is exactly what you said, almost verbatim, is what Fred VanVleet said when he was on Old Man in the Three. Is that like if we could just run off like a 6 game winning streak, like we would just be right in there. And I put it as this: well, if it was that easy, you would have done it already. You know, like I'm sorry to put it like that, but like it's the truth. Is like there is a ticking time bomb in the league, and as we get to this middle part of the season, this is where GMs have to start reassessing what we are as a team. Do we really have what it is to be a contender this year? And I don't think that there's any trades that they make in the margins that make them a significantly better team. I think they'll still be at best like fourth, fifth seed, and I don't think that that's what the Raptors and their fans want. They want to be champions again. So
Yeah, it's a tough situation because it's like you're saying. I think for pretty much for any team, if you're not a title contender, the most logical solution is let's tank. Like let's tank and let's try to get the number one pick. Because as soon as you get the number one pick, your franchise is pretty much changed for the next 20 years. Like that's kind of how it is. So logically, it does make a lot of sense. I think just like the biggest part right now, like you talked about Van Vliet. Sure, Van Vliet's probably one of the people that you can trade. It's just that right now, like I think probably the biggest problem for the Raptors right now is just how badly Van Vliet's playing right now and how badly he's shooting. Like he's shooting 33% from three in the year. This is the worst he's ever shot in his entire career. Like, and he's 28 years old. Like he should be in his prime right now. There's a couple players like you mentioned, even Scotty Barnes, like they're just underperforming for where they are. And do you trade a guy who's necessarily underperforming? Like Van Vliet's a small guard. I feel like point guards are in a weird situation where like almost every team has like a pretty good point guard at this moment. Like almost every team has somebody there. So like, what do you? And Van Vliet's only 6'1". You can't move him to a 2. You can't do any of this other stuff. I mean, you could because they did it with Lowry, but like, it's weird fit. It doesn't really work anywhere. So like, what's the value that you can get on the market for someone like Van Vliet? Or do you just try to continue to go as you're going right now and hope that he picks it back up and some of your other guys pick it back up and then maybe like we're saying, or like, oh, you can go on a run, but like you're saying, any team can do that. I just think probably Toronto is primed to do that the most, just because of like there really shouldn't be anything that's stopping them. The only thing that's stopping them is just shots are not going in right now. When they usually have in the past, they're just not going in, and that's it's a tough situation to be in.
I agree. Um, I guess let's move on to the next
Yeah,
team, and
maybe we
that
want to
team.
go a little fast too, because we're 35 minutes in, and I think we only touched three teams.
All right, then let's package these
All right, cool.
package these two teams real quickly in together. The Bulls and the Wizards are at 5 games. Oh, no. Yeah, 5 games under 500. Uh, Panic, no panic. 3 to 1.
Chicago Bulls, I would panic. They are actually both of these teams. I'm gonna panic because Washington, the players that you trade for that like are actually somewhat decent that you got, especially in the Westbrook trade of Kuzma. Kuzma wants out. You traded for Will Barton this season. He's not even in your roster rotation anymore. Like, things are pretty bad. Bradley Beal's always injured. You just paid him a ton of money. Porzingis is about to be on the open market. Like, where are you guys going? A lot of the only good, really player you have that's younger. I mean, Rui's actually been solid, and you have like Kispert. But like other than that, like I really don't have that much. Chicago, touched on them so many times. They are,
Yeah.
the tier 2 and 3 stars Bulls. Like they're just they just don't have enough. No more assets. No more nothing. I think you kind of have to blow it up. It is a disaster for pretty much kind of both of these teams, in my opinion.
I agree. Wizards definitely panic, but Bulls five five level sirens,
Yeah.
whole city shut down sirens. Panic is going off right now because this is not the situation they hope to be in when they started the season. We still do not have an update on Lonzo Ball. Think about that. That it is January 2014. Is January 14, 2023, and we have no update on what Lonzo Ball's progression with this injury is. There's either severe incompetence or there is just not they're just hiding information from us because this is ridiculous how we do not know what's going on.
I saw a notification on my phone that said Lonzo Ball posted a video of himself dunking, just like I think it was yesterday.
Mhm.
I didn't actually watch it because like kind of we were saying like I don't really care because I don't think he's gonna play for the next like 2 months. But maybe that's he's doing a little bit better, but it sounds not so good.
Exactly. All right, moving on to the West teams. Give me 1 second. The Western teams that are on that bubble. We'll first start off with and we'll rapid fire these ones now.
Yeah, yeah.
The Clippers, they are at 500. Brian, panic, no panic.
So I know we have Clippers as one of our topics later on, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but I'm just gonna tell you where my mind's at right now. I'm gonna say no panic, but maybe I got one drop of sweat coming off my head, but I'm not panicking yet. What about you?
I will tell you, honestly,
Are you
they
stage
are on my
five?
panic list. I don't know if it's stage 5 yet, but like they definitely are on my panic side because, like I said,
Hmm.
going into the season, I thought that they were their finals favorites.
Yeah.
They are not playing like that. Their supporting cast is not playing like that. Uh, they're still injury prone with their two best players.
Hmm.
One player obviously doesn't even need. We don't even need to say why he he's at that point. But like even Paul George, who has been carrying, I will give him that.
Hmm.
is suffering with a hamstring injury at this present time. They're starting to look less and less like a contender to me as time goes by. But yeah, like you said, don't want to go too far because we want
Yeah.
to save it for the next topic. But I guess our next team is the Utah Jazz. They are sitting one game under 500 at this point. Is it panic or no panic time, Ryan?
I I I kind of want to say like panic, but not for the reason of like, oh, we're underperforming. Panic of like, oh no, we're not going to be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes anymore. Kind of panic. But in all actuality, like no, like Laurie Markkinen is going to be the most improved player of the year. The rest of the team is looking pretty nice. Your head coach that you have right now, like you can feel pretty confident in that hire. They're playing fantastic. I wouldn't panic if I was Utah. Like if anything, you have a ton of assets. You have Laurie Markkinen who's breaking out, and you're pretty much chilling. And you have Minnesota's draft picks, which you should be very very happy about.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly what I was thinking. You ever seen that gif of like Daffy Duck where he like snoozes the alarm and then he turns to the other side, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where they should be at right now. There's
yeah,
no panic in their bones right now because you are overperforming
yeah.
where people expected you to be. You actually have solid pieces to grow off of. By the luck of you, you could actually wind up. And granted, T Wolves have been playing better lately. They've been playing a little
Yeah.
500 ball. They're actually right behind them in the standings. But some things I don't think are gonna last, and I think the T Wolves playing well is gonna be something that's not gonna last for a while. So as the Suns come back, I know that's a nuxie, but like as the Suns come back to earth, as the Thunder, I think is a team as well that is surging. You could see T Wolves dropping, but that's not even the team that we're talking about. But I think they're chilling. No panic. They're good. Let's move on to the team that I was just going
Yeah.
crazy about, the T Wolves. Panic, no
Yeah,
panic, Brian.
I think the T Wolves might be a stage five type of panic right now. Of you went all in, and it's just not working out. You have D'Angelo Russell right now, like pretty much saying, "Get me off this team. It's not fun to play here." It's it's just not looking good, and like I don't know. You have Anthony Edwards, you have Karl-Anthony Towns, you have Rudy Gobert. Like logically, you're like you tell yourself that's going to be a good team, but right now, not really looking at it, looking like it. Um, Something needs to change. And you're kind of in the same situation as Chicago Bulls. You went all in, and now you're sitting on the ninth seed, and then the Chicago Bulls are 11th seed. So, not as bad, but not great.
Exactly. In my mind, they sacrifice depth for
Yeah.
star power, and ironically, they got mediocre play. That's the craziest part about it. So like, it's kind of like it's a joke in itself, right? I feel for them because like what I going into the season did think that this was a good enough pairing where
Yeah.
it spaces the floor enough for Gobert to be in that dunking position. Carl could play how he likes to play, a little bit from the three, a little bit inside. He is a three level guy, so
Mhm.
them not being able to take advantage of that with two completely different versatile types of bigs. And it's funny because other teams complain about not having versatile bigs that have to do very different type of things. Is bad is how I would put it.
Yeah, it's
So
it's Anthony Edwards is kind of in the same situation that Donovan Mitchell was in, playing with like Rudy
yeah,
Gobert. If you think about it, like they play very similar. They want to attack the basket, but meanwhile, you have Rudy Gobert there just waiting for a rebound or pass to dunk, and that kind of spacing does not help him whatsoever.
yep. I agree. All right, on to the next. The Phoenix Suns, 2 games under 500. They are 2 out of their last 10 too. Just wanted to say that as well. Panic or no panic, Brian?
I am going to say no panic. I'm still high on the Phoenix Suns. So or not high in the sense of like I think they're going to win a championship, but I think they're better than where they are right now. They're just riddled with injuries right now. When Devin Booker was playing, he was it's tough to say. I was going to say like MVP type of candidate, but it's hard because so many players are playing MVP level. So maybe he's like, you know, eighth on that power ranking list of MVP when he was playing. It's just that like right now, like I was looking at it of Devin Booker's played 29 games so far this season. Chris Paul's played 26 games. Cam Johnson 28. Actually, I think it was just 8. Dario Saric 25 games. Campaign 28 games. Like these guys have missed pretty much the most of their roster for the entire season, or for half of the season so far. So like I are the Phoenix Suns actually good? They're somewhat there, but it's just they're better than where they are right now. Is what I would really just say. But what do you think?
No, I agree 100%. I don't think there's a panic moment. I do think that it's it's a panic for you to see DeAndre Ayton though,
Yeah.
because he's honestly this is like um and granted, I'm not gonna be the type of person that's gonna try to take money out of people's pockets or like
For sure.
pocket watching people like that. But like um in this case, for all the fuss that he made about his money and stuff, like it seems like this is like karma getting him back to show like you're just not that guy. And
Yeah.
like this is proving that why they didn't want to give you this money because when you expect your best player to go down and you're whatever. I don't even know where you would put him as. I don't think he's the third best player on
No.
this team. I don't think he's the fourth best player on this team. He should be one of those guys,
Yeah.
but he's getting paid like he's one of those guys. And he's not really affecting anything out there. It's just like man, like you're getting exactly why they were telling you they didn't want to give you the money.
Yeah.
And it's just sad to see it like that. But I agree. Once Devin Booker comes back, they'll right the ship. Once Chris Paul is right as well, they'll right the ship to put it all together. They've been having some really wonky like lineups now. Looking at who they've been able to throw out there, I know like Derek Fisher's nephew, who was having like the game of his life in that game against the Warriors
Mhm.
about a week ago. So they'll figure it out. Are they like finals contenders? I don't know about that.
Yeah, the only thing that I do worry about is exactly what you talked about, like DeAndre Ayton. Like that's the thing that I'm kind of panicking about because it doesn't seem like that's ever going to work out, and he's just like you say, not that guy. Everything else though, the team is good, but DeAndre Ayton's the one scary part.
Exactly. All right, on to the next. 3 games under 500. The KC Thunder. Panic or no panic?
I think you're straight chilling if you're the OKC Thunder. I I don't think they ever really had big aspirations this year. SGA is playing absolutely out of his mind, as always. Whenever he does play, he plays out of his mind. He's generally injured, but he's been pretty good this year, injury wise. You're also missing your number 2 pick that you just drafted that's going to miss the entire season. Like, this team has so much potential just going forward. Just even looking at how young their team is. You got someone like Jalen Williams, who you just drafted, who's actually playing really well. I'm not panicking whatsoever. I think they're pretty much exactly where they deserve and should be at the moment. Um, Definitely no underperforming here.
I agree 100%. Definitely. You know what? There's no words to add to it. Like you're right. No panic right now. Congrats on having overperforming this year.
Mhm.
On to the next is the Trailblazers. 3 games under 500. Brian, panic? No panic.
I would say this is kind of a panic. I This team is just has never been good enough. Like, because I think about also like what the expectations of this team beforehand. And I know some people were like, oh, maybe they can win a championship. I know Portland definitely wants to win a championship. They traded for Jeremy Grant. They did all this stuff. But like this team has never been good enough. It's just they're just not that team. They've actually been somewhat healthy, or other than Dame actually. Dame's missed over 10 games this season, but like, most of the other rosters people, especially like someone like Yusuf Nurkic, who's always injured, has actually, knock on wood, been good this year. Shaden Sharp has looked somewhat solid. It's just that the rest of their bench is so bad. I know they just got Gary Trent back, but like, or not Gary Trent, Gary Payton back, but like, I don't know. This team is not winning a championship. They're the definition of no man's land. I would panic if I'm a Portland fan.
Panic isn't even the word. It's an understatement. um, this team, man, like they've done they've done a master class on how you can ruin a star player's like potential and value in that case too. Because remember, I think I said this last year. I wish we could, like have like a thought bubble and go back to that moment when I said it. Is that Lillard's career is starting to shape up to look like Carmelo Anthony's a
Yeah.
lot and a lot more. Every season we see this more and more that it looks like that. And loyalty in some cases only breeds mediocrity in the league is a sad thing to say
Hmm.
because um, I think the same thing in Carmelo's situation. By the time that he decides that he wants to leave, might be a year or two over
Yeah.
when he should have done it. And he had like a prime opportunity to do it last year, where people were clamoring, the
Yep.
Lakers were clamoring. There was just a lot of talk, and now all of that has died down. The team went on a great start to the season, obviously, but
Yeah.
then cooler heads prevailed and realized, yeah, this team ain't doing nothing. Like so, um, it's just sad. It's sad that it's playing out in this way, and I feel bad for Dame, but like it's a little bit on you too to like you got to make that decision on yourself too. I know he's deep rooted in that area, but um, you got to do something for your own career at some point to want to win.
To me, it was more of a like kind of money move of like, didn't he just like extend some more money right now for like he's going to be in Portland pretty much for the rest of his career. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, like he's just, which I can't be mad of, like he's getting that bag, he's getting his money, he's doing what he needs to do. Is he just going to win a championship in his career? No. And someone like Bradley Beal, it's very same situation. We talked about like the loyalty just doesn't help you. Bradley Beal's in that same situation. Just signed the giant contract. Is he going to win a championship in Washington? No, not whatsoever. So, like,
Yeah,
both these guys are in a very similar situation. Very talented, but yeah, Portland's not going anywhere.
exactly, and that's what makes it even more uncanny. Like the Carmelo situation, is
Mm,
because that was a decision he had to make too with the move to the Bulls or
yep.
stay in New York, and he chose the money. So
Yeah.
we've seen how that's gone.
Yeah, that would have been
But
interesting if he went to the Bulls.
it would have
Hmm.
been a very interesting time to see that. But it's one of the NBA's biggest what ifs, I
Yeah.
guess. But moving on to the last team on our list, 4 games under 500, Los Angeles Lakers. Panic, Brian, or no panic?
Ah, it's like hard to say panic necessarily, just because, at least like I say, compared to their expectations, where are they? My expectations of the Lakers have always been exactly where they are right now. For Lakers fans, would probably be different, and especially even just the last couple of years, like you're expecting so much more. Um, it's just this team's not good. This team is not good. It has really have not been good for the past few years. Anthony Davis always injured. He was playing fantastic when he was healthy. Problem is never going to stay healthy. It's I'm just looking at the rest of his team. It's like I got Lonnie Walker, I got Thomas Bryant, I got Dennis Schroeder. Like, come on, Austin Reeves. Like, I'm sorry, this team is you're underperforming compared to where the Lakers status is, but like this team's not good. Never been good.
It's a team full of shoulda, woulda, couldas.
Yeah.
Like they're definitely a panic. Don't even need to go about it,
Yeah.
go into it in much depth. But yeah, like I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right, moving on to our next topic. Um, the Luca led, the Luca led Dallas Mavericks went into. I believe they played yesterday. Is that correct? I think they did.
I think so.
Or did they? They did not play yesterday.
Huh.
They played on Thursday. They went into Los Angeles and had a two-time. They had a second overtime win over the Los Angeles Lakers, where it took everything out of the team to win that game. Uh, they were, mind you, they were up by 19 on this team that we talked about. We just talked about
Yeah.
not being a really good team. Uh, and they allowed them to come back into the game in the fourth quarter, send it to overtime, and then proceed to send it to overtime again before officially winning the game. Brian, what is your viewpoint on this team with Luca absolutely destroying, like laying a blaze of the league at this moment?
Ah, the it's an interesting situation, and I kind of feel like I've been kind of consistent on it this entire time. Of I feel like the Dallas Mavericks themselves are like a travesty. Like the roster itself is really bad, but you have Luka Doncic, who's kind of clearly like the best player in the league right now. Like I don't think that's a stretch to say like well he's playing right now. Like he's the best player in the league. The rest of his team is just not good. And I actually always liked the Christian Wood pickup. Like I always thought that was like actually a really good pickup. Especially surprisingly of like how much I believe they gave up. Like it really was not a lot. But it shows you like Luca needs help. You can't just do it by yourself. I mean, he is helping. Or, I mean, he is kind of doing it by himself right now. This team should not be 24-19. Like the rest of this roster should not be 24-19. But Luca is actually the only reason why they're doing that well. It's also nice to see of like someone like Luca right now. It's funny you talked about how Pascal is like leading his team and points, rebounds, and steals. Like right now, like Luca's leading the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and minutes, and just like completely dominating. But if you look at it, I think Luca's always pretty much had this in him. But the difference is like he actually came into the season like in shape versus how he usually comes into the season of coming in out of shape and just relying on this playing basketball during the NBA games to get into shape. Like that's that's him getting his workout in versus what he did in this season. So it's nice to see him take it a little bit more seriously, and it's paying off extremely well for him. This rest of the team, they got nothing, and their roster situation is not the greatest. They have a bunch of future draft picks to actually trade, but they can't until the end of the season because I believe the Knicks actually have a lot of protections on their picks, or have one of their picks that's stopping them from actually trading. But yeah, you have like someone like you traded Porzingis for Davis Bertans and like Spencer Dinwiddie, but Spencer's actually been decent, but Davis Bertans, that's pretty much been a travesty. And I feel like even coming into the season, or when that trade happened, I was always like, that's a travesty. He's one of the worst contracts in the league, and he's getting paid to 2024, 25. So long rant there. Luka's amazing. Rest of the team's pretty bad. What do you think?
I agree 100%. That you bringing up the whole he's leading in those four categories
Yeah.
is actually one of the places that I wanted to take with this conversation um, about the Mavs is what I'm starting to feel or see are like as we are watching him mature and mature to this point, Luca is he is really starting to embody what that '06, '07 LeBron
Mm-hmm.
Cavs team felt like, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I pull up some stats so
Oh,
we could talk
word.
about it too.
Oh,
But
word.
before I even get to those stats, there was one thing that was a glaring thing that I felt I had to say is there is, like you mentioned, there are some guys that are positives on this team.
Hmm.
Tim Hardaway is always, in my mind, been a positive for this team. He's a reliable player, but his reliability comes as far as how much time he can actually spend on the court. He is
Hmm.
injury prone, right? But the two bright sides besides Luca on the team are Christian Wood and it is Spencer Dinwiddie, both playing above their career averages, of pretty much across the board. But from that point on, everybody else is negative. Everybody is not a positive to this team. It's ridiculous to see like someone like a Reggie Bullock like regress in his 3-point shooting on this team. I don't even think we need to talk about guys like Frank Ntilikina. He doesn't even really see
Hey,
that much play,
my
you know.
boy, my boy Frank.
Like you said, Barton's not playing to his uh, well, I think after he got that contract, he never really played to
Yeah.
the level of where he needed to be. I think Maxi Kluba is an all right player, but he
Yeah.
just doesn't help move the needle either. There's just no one really on this team that's helping them like move in the right direction besides Christian Wood and Spencer Dinwiddie. But going right into the stats of everything, obviously, like you said, the points, the rebounds, the assists. One big stat that I was thinking about as well, and I think he's league leading in this stat, is his usage rate. Right,
Mm.
is Luca is creating and holding the ball at an astronomical number because he really needs to,
Yeah.
and it needs to be in that case. And at the beginning of the season, he started that usage rate has slightly gone down, which is kind of crazy because 38 is already a high enough number for a usage rate. So he started off the season at 42% at his usage rate. That is not sustainable in my mind for a team to be a good team. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it is like just showing how superior of a player he is. And even the fact that they're over 5 games over 500 should be a surprising thing
Yeah.
to think, because I think you pluck him off this team. This is not even a playing team. I think this
Yeah. No
very
shot.
well would be the worst team in the NBA if they didn't have Luca on the team.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I started looking into to get a better understanding of what was LeBron's usage looking like at that time in those years where he needed to take the game while he was on the Cavs team that he just wasn't that great
Hmm.
to the next level, right? Obviously, I think Luka's usage is going to go down a little bit more as the season goes on, and it will start to mirror some of these numbers. But looking back at LeBron James's usage over the years, he never hit the usage rates that he's hitting, well, the ones that he's hitting actually now, since like the beginning of his career.
Sheesh.
And only shows and tells you the story of like with him doing that much for the team, it's not going to be a byproduct of winning. So like the highest LeBron ever had is in two. I'm going to highlight two seasons. It is the 05-06 season where they eventually lost, I believe, in the second round of that season. And then I believe, yeah, it was the second round because I think they beat the Wizards for the first round in that season. But obviously that team was just not good enough. It was not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you look at the 06-07 season where he eventually went to his first finals, his usage rate dropped down to 30.9.
Wow.
And that's a significant enough of a jump to
Hmm.
show and realize like even though that team was, I'm sure, still trash, there was enough on that team that brought down that usage rate to a point where LeBron was able to still be the player who he was and create for others and then take over when it was necessary.
Yeah.
But if you look after that, the usage rate goes right back to 33%. And if you know the whole story of the Cavs situation, you will know that LeBron never went back to the finals with the Cavs in that first stint after that time, right?
Yeah.
So and what I started to correlate is almost every year that LeBron was able to win a championship was when his usage rate was not at his highest. You look at 2013 to 2012, 13, you look at 15, 16, and then you look at it might be an anomaly, but it's still not as relatively high to what it was in those years in 2020, 2021, where it's at close to 32%.
Hmm.
But now you look at the years where he's having the worst seasons, he is right back up at 33% in this
Yeah.
season because he just has to do too much. And that's where I'm thinking it has to be, that's not on Luca, but it is on that team to figure out. It's on the general manager of um, the Dallas
Mavericks.
Mavericks to figure out where are we going to get guys that help Luca's situation. They're lacking, in my mind, the shooters to for that usage rate to go down.
Yeah.
I think that they should be players in the trade deadline, to be honest, because I think that there is going to be some guys out there that are going to be able to be available at the trade deadline to help out in that situation. And also another aspect I think that they could take advantage of is trying to also, and I think it's harder now not having Brunson in this case, but like trying to split up the minutes between him and Spencer Dinwiddie even a little bit better
Hmm.
will help with those second units that they have because, like we said, clearly they do not have a bench. Like they do not have enough help out their situation.
Yeah, it's just bad. Like I just don't really know how they get better this year because next year they have a bunch of picks to trade, contract situation, all that kind of stuff. I think I was looking at it before, like Christian Wood's a free agent, Dwight Powell they get rid of, like a bunch of their smaller guys. That money goes away. Dinwiddie doesn't become actually he becomes an expiring contract, so like he's easier to trade. Like they're very flexible next year. But what do you do this year? And that's what makes it so tough for this team. And it's actually kind of interesting. You're talking about like Luca's usage rate, which is like you're always talking about of how just how much higher it is from everybody else, actually compared to like for himself, his entire career, he's actually mostly been over a 40% usage rate. And like, it's only like
That's
this
insane.
year that he's actually just like scoring so much. Like, yeah, 19th, yeah, 2019, 40.7. 2020, 40.5, 2021, 42%. Like, he's just, his usage rate is just, it just shows like the team's not good. And it's really never been good around him. He just has to do so much. But it actually kind of works for them just because of how good he is. Like he's the highest usage player in the league, and he's scoring the most effectively right now. So it's definitely pretty crazy to see how Luka actually is. I just don't know how they get better. And
But you
yeah,
see now, that
he's
kind of is why I wanted to bring up that
yeah,
situation with LeBron, right? Is like we watched what that wound up becoming,
yeah,
right? Like where LeBron just got fed up to a point where he needed to move, right?
yeah.
Do you think we see that happen with Luca? Like,
I hear people that are close to Luca are like at least like that follow Mavericks a lot and know a lot about Luca, and they always talk about how much Luca actually like admires LeBron and admires the things that he's done in his career. So that's why they've always kind of said like him requesting a trade, going to somewhere like this guy wants to win games. Like this is one of the most competitive people out there, and Luca is like he wants to win games. If this team is not going to get any better, he will force his way out. So that's where it's just kind of seeing like, all right, what can they do next year? Can Luka actually wait that long? Most likely, but like, what are they going to do next year? Because if they show like there's no future here and they're not going to get any better, that's when they're gonna lose Luka. I think they will lose him eventually, and I think probably the biggest thing that is gonna propel that is just how they got nothing for someone like Jalen Brunson. Like, if you just got something, if you just got one, two first round picks, or you just kept this guy, like you have enough assets to still build around. But losing Jalen Brunson for absolute nothing, that's going to haunt them. I think that's going to stop them from getting just enough that they need in order to actually win a championship. But actually, I don't know. With someone like Luka, maybe if he just has a legit number two guy, that could be better. But like Porzingis was that was a disaster. They've tried to build around him, but it's just not really worked out well whatsoever.
I think about how funny it is how a few weeks back, Hawks Twitter was going crazy about how it could have been us a
Yeah.
situation, and you know what? I think there's a little bit, there got to be a little bit of Luca that thinks that way too, because if you
Yeah.
look at how they've constructed that team, Hawks, right? You
Ooh.
pluck Trey
Yeah.
and you put Luca there. I don't see how they're not a finals contender.
Yeah.
Like that team right there would have been the perfect team for him to be on. And so it's a little bit it's a two-way street in that sense where they would have both been good for each other in my mind. You have the Clint Capellas of the world that will, I Luca's pretty good with the obviously he's finding people.
Yeah.
I think that his pick and pop game would be not pop, Clint can't shoot, but his pick and roll game would be insane with a guy like Clint Capella.
Yeah.
Like the things we would have saw from there, Collins would be able to set in the corner, get his shots off relatively easy. DeJounte Murray could fit right into that Spencer Dinwiddie role. It would have been it's almost like something I kind of want to test out on 2K type of
Yeah.
situation now because of that.
That is a really good situation. I also wonder what would have happened if just the Phoenix Suns with the number one pick that year, instead of picking DeAndre Ayton, just picked the Luka Doncic, and now Luka's playing with Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges, and that like there's so much that could have happened. It is definitely sad that he's in Dallas and that team is just so bad.
Oh man, I hope one of our resident Mavs, uh, what do we call them? Subject matter
Yes,
specialists on
yeah.
call. Davis isn't upset about that one. I hope
Yeah.
he isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see. We have to get him back on to get his opinion.
Definitely. All right, moving on to our next topic.
Hmm.
It is about Los Angeles Clippers. As of right now, we mentioned it already. Their record is 500 at this point. Good enough to be seventh in the East, third in the Pacific. They are offensive rating is 27th in the league at 110.9. Their defensive rating is 112, seventh best in the league, and a net rating of minus 1.1 that has them best for 22nd in the league. Brian, what is wrong with the Clippers? Is it time to start thinking about blowing it up?
Ah, I think it's it's a little bit twofold. So we talked about with a lot of these teams that are underperforming, injuries is a pretty big part. You know, you got Paul George missing 12 games. You got Kawhi missing 22 games. You have Robert Covington missing 17 games. Like, you know, these are like substantial, especially the Paul George and Kawhi. I mean, I just put Robin Covington in there because he's a good player, but he's not on the level as Paul George and Kawhi. But like missing those guys a lot of the games, that definitely hurts you. Um, as we know, like someone like Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson, like they're not the guys to to step up and be your number one and number two guys or whatever, or even number two and number three guys. I still think this team is good enough. The only reason why I wouldn't blow it up yet, maybe next season or maybe in the off season, is just that like I feel like with the Clippers, give it till I feel like the Clippers aren't actually anything I see from them. I don't believe until it's 10 games before like playoff time, or just because that's when they're good. That's if they're ever gonna flip the switch, like that's when they do it. Especially with a team like with Kawhi, but as of right now, like they're just kind of in a lull and just kind of going with the flow until time passes. So that's why I personally don't panic as much right now. They're not playing good. Like they're not playing good, but I personally don't panic until a little bit later on. But what do you think?
I wouldn't say. I think I did say panic for
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
but but it goes back to the sliding scale of panic,
Yeah.
right? Like whenever you got to top 20, top 30, whatever semantics you want to give to it, um, uh, when you have two guys that are in the top 20, top 30 players in the league, you have enough to like breathe easy a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So there's that aspect of it. I think that's why my sliding scale of panic is not like at the five levels like we mentioned.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that it is time to start considering blowing it up. And the reason why I say that is, and I have a caveat to this too,
Okay.
which I will say, is I think that they've exhausted every way that they can take a look at this team, construct this team, and see if we could how we can maximize it the most, right? Granted, like you said, a lot of guys missing time and a lot of people in and out of the lineups. But you know why I feel a little bit different about their situation than like even take like the Nets situation that have a very similar situation, right? That there was never a microscope on them. they're doing this without a microscope. So like, like the saying pressure creates diamonds. In this case, like if it might not in this case for them because like I think as the times get tense, like who like I trust him is when the and who you
Yeah,
lost me for a
you cut.
second.
Yeah, for a second, but you're still good. You keep going.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so like but as time persists and everything, you start to think like who can I really trust on this team? And realistically, I don't really trust their stars is what it comes down to for me. I trust that they have the talent to
Yep.
do it, right? Kawhi's won before, so there's that part of trust that I have. But Steve Kerr said this a few years back. Is like when they played the Rockets, that he had like an unwavering confidence in his team when they played in Game Seven against the Rockets because they've won before, and that's like something you can't like put into someone. Like you have to feel it to know it, right?
Hmm.
Paul George doesn't have that.
He does
And
not.
he could try as hard. We saw that year when they went to the Western Conference Finals against the Suns, and he gave a valiant fight for it. But like, not like I'm saying he don't have that dog in him, but like he just does not, in my mind, raise them above where the rest of the field is. But the caveat to this is why I think they won't blow it up is that Steve Ballmer is building an
Yeah.
arena, and I think it's Inglewood, California,
Mm,
and he needs to sell tickets. So there's no
yeah.
way in hell they're going to trade their stars now, and in an effort to lose money for their building that their stadium that they're building right now. So I don't think it's gonna happen.
That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I definitely. They're definitely not going to blow it up. It's just a. I definitely agree. Of like, it is kind of funny. It is very similar to like the Nets kind of situation, especially even you think about the Nets situation like maybe 2 years ago. We have a bunch of big name players. Someone like, or this is not on the Nets, but like if you compare on the Clippers, like someone like John Wall, you have on that team, and even a Nicholas Batum, which is like a smaller scale, but he's had a really great career, even though now he's in the back half of it. And even someone like Reggie Jackson, like a lot of these guys have had really awesome careers and they're big names, but the way that they're performing now isn't anywhere near to them at their peak. Um, and then yeah, I look at the stars of like Kevin Durant and Kyrie. Like I'd much rather have those two guys than Paul George and Kawhi. Even if you look at talent wise, like I'd rather have those two guys. Like who do I want taking those last shots? I, if anything, it's kind of funny. I'm interested to see how you would rank them. I think I would rank like if I was to rank Paul George, Kawhi, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie of who do I want to take that last shot. I would say Kevin Durant, and then Kawhi, and then Kyrie, and then Paul George. Would you put Kyrie Irving higher than Kawhi? I feel like Kawhi's like a robot. He just no fear.
I feel like it's no, I agree with
Yeah.
your list actually, but I feel like it's like shaver. It's like a
I
razor
agree.
thin,
I agree.
like difference between the two.
I could go either way, honestly. I can go either way because especially Kyrie's also hit a lot of really big shots at the end of the games. Um, and so I could, like you're saying, the margin there is a lot smaller versus the margin of Kyrie versus Paul George. I feel like that's a pretty
I
big margin
agree.
there. Yeah, this team, I don't think they're going to blow it up. I just, and I think I was even looking at like their pick situation or even their salary situation, especially like 2024 and on. Like they're pretty set. They have also like I wonder how valuable these picks are for like 2027 and 2029 is when the picks that the Clippers can actually trade. I know it's not as valuable as the Lakers picks, but are those valuables in your mind of you see what's happening with Kawhi and Paul George, how they're always injured. Maybe this is a situation where they have a bunch of old stars here, probably going to blow it up soon. They haven't drafted anyone recently that's really that great. In 2027, in 5 years or 4 years, do you think that's a, a valuable pick to have?
I think it's valuable in the sense that I don't think Kawhi is going to be around that long. Like,
True.
I don't
Same.
think he wants to be around that
Yeah.
long. But if we really think about it, all the time that he's sat out, he probably should be playing that long, you know?
Yeah.
But that is I think the 2029 one is more attractive because of that. Because I
Yep.
don't think that either one of them will still be on this roster by that time. You know,
Yeah.
like uh I think that's the same reason why the Lakers ones are so
Yeah.
attractive too. Is like you project that like you know for a fact LeBron's not going to be
Yeah.
there that long, but you project that AD is not going to be there either, and it's not like even if AD was there, it's gonna miss half of the season. So like like so it's like okay, like it's not really even going to matter. So I think yes, like they still are attractive picks. I think picks
Mhm.
are always attractive, but
Yeah.
I also do think that picks are more attractive before they're actualized.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Exactly.
so like every time you think about a pick before it's actualized, it could be anything. It could be a number one pick unless
Yeah.
there's protections. Or it could be a 30th pick. So that's what makes uh I think the league is a little pick hungry lately,
Yeah.
especially after that trade in 2013. That kind of changed the tide of like usually when you move a star, you
Hmm.
get equal value back. Now it's more of I get your picks, you give me a band of assassins or misfits, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call them, and 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 we go like that, and that's what you're seeing with trades happen nowadays. But yeah, no, I think that those are going to be some attractive picks. Maybe they could leverage that, put that together in a package with like a guy like a Reggie Jackson,
Hmm.
like Luke Kennard's been playing a lot better this season over last year,
Yeah.
in my mind. Uh, yes, even and honestly, I haven't seen enough of the Clippers to know if Norm Powell is playing back at the same levels that he
Hmm.
was playing a few years ago. But I wonder what's going on with that situation and if other teams are monitoring that. He
Yeah.
was a guy that a lot of people coveted at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious about that. I think they could like if they really thought this was their year and Kawhi is going to be healthy by the end of the season. Paul George will be healthy by then. All the load management stuff that they do. Like why aren't they one of the teams that can like exactly you mentioned like package Reggie Jackson and two picks to get I don't know, John Collins. I don't know if that's enough, but like something like that, or because I'm just trying to think like who's even available, but like add a little bit something extra. Maybe that's something, and maybe that pushes them forward a bit. I don't know.
And in that case too, I think like they're a good team to have like quasi star in that sense,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like you said, like a John Collins, a star in his role. If you're able to star in your role, like you will do well on these type of teams. That's kind of the reason why I feel how I feel about like even Draymond Green, guys like Ben Simmons too, is like they don't need when you have both of your stars there, they don't need to
Yeah.
be true on stars, but like they help out the situation and they star in their roles.
Yeah, it's see exactly like in the Clipper situation, that's the thing. If you have a number one like Kawhi, then I think you're fine with everything else. Like you want to put a respectable team out there, but you're fine with everything else. You can take someone like a John Collins. But if you're a team like the Chicago Bulls where you have a bunch of number twos and number threes, to get that number one, it's so difficult that like if the Chicago Bulls were somehow able to trade for John Collins, that does absolutely nothing for them. So that's where it definitely means something for the Clippers. I wonder. I feel like the Clippers are always such a quiet team on what they're gonna do that I really don't know like where they're thinking, but that's something that they should be probably be looking into.
Yeah, Lawrence Frank keeps it under the wraps.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to weekly roundup real quick? I have a little bit of stuff, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on. So, I actually want to touch on what are your thoughts, especially with the All-Star Weekend coming up soon. We have a couple of the people from the dunk contest already announced. And for the listeners, if you're unaware, you have Shaden Sharp from Portland. You have KJ Martin, Kenya Martin's son from in Houston right now. And then you have the first ever G League player coming to the NBA dunk contest in Mac McClung. Jeff, is the dunk contest dead? What's happening here?
No, it's dead. It's worse. It's worse than dead because let's be honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't like. I've seen like KJ Martin dunking in real time in game and stuff, but like it's not like leaping out of the field athleticism. You got a guy in John Morant in the league, and you can't get that guy to be in this. Like, I just think like we've gotten to a point where some certain things for stars in the league feel like I'm too good. I'm too good for this. I'm too cool for this. But other sports, you don't see that happen, and it is sad to see it like that because I know like Adam Silver has taken a lot of steps, and I give him credit for this to make the All-Star game a lot more enjoyable to watch. But now I think the approach has to be something with how the Saturday night weekend, Saturday night game, day, whatever you call it, goes, because that used to be in my childhood, like the highlight, a highlight for my childhood during this time of the year, is seeing what dunks you're going to see, who's in the 3-point contest, who's killing the skills contest, those were always like memories I still remember of like seeing like Dwight Howard with the Superman, seeing Gerald Green with the blowing the candle on the top of the rim, Zach LaVine going insane. Seeing Eric Gordon, Aaron Gordon, I'm sorry, not Eric Gordon.
It was close enough that it could have passed, so I let it slide.
but no, like those were the exciting moments of seeing that time. But and I don't want to take anything away from Mac, but like it's just sad that a G League guy has to come up and be in the dunk contest.
Yeah, and exactly you're saying, like he has like hops, and KJ Martin has hops, but Shaden Sharp is actually like out of the gym kind of athlete. Like he's good.
That's why I didn't even. That's why I didn't even say anything. He's insane. He is insane.
I'm cool. I'm very excited to see him, but like exactly what you're saying you touch on the skills challenge, the 3-point contest. I think I just saw like Jason Tatum is going to be in the 3-point contest. Like those contests, those other 2 challenges are actually still considered like cool, but ever since like Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, that fiasco and the disaster of the scoring and this and that, it's just not been cool to be in the dunk contest. And you have a bunch of guys coming off the bench, and like you're talking about, now we have a G League guy coming in the dunk contest. It's really ruined it. Adam Silver, I feel like, I don't know, they have to do something, because you've always wanted to see like LeBron James in the dunk contest. Now he's a lot older. It would still be cool to see him, but like, how do we get, like you mentioned, John Morant? How do we get guys like this to actually participate in the dunk contest? Like, there has to be something. It's sad when you don't have the best people actually performing in those things. And we talk about the 3-point contest. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, like these are guys, even someone like Duncan Robinson, like these are guys that have always participated because they're actually really good at this. Versus we don't have the best people actually being in the dunk contest, which is sad.
And that's the thing too, is like I felt it was always intentional that the dunk contest was the last thing you saw
Yes,
because it
exactly.
was the highlight, right? And it's not the highlight anymore, like
Not at
at
all.
all. And then another thing to put in perspective about this too is that, and it's kind of laughable, is him as a G League player. Granted, I don't know the exact salary that he's making, and quote me if I'm wrong, but let me know if I'm wrong. But I believe that the winning prize for the dunk contest is like $1 million. So Mac could literally potentially make his whole year's contract in winning this dunk contest. So I think like that makes sense for him, right? Like it definitely makes sense for him to do that.
So all I can really find is that because what they do, they each dunk contest participant represents like an HBCU college, and so whoever wins there, 50,000 gets donated to that college, and then the player gets 100,000. So it's not quite Mac McClung's actual contract, but it's not 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 too far off. So yeah,
Oh
it's
man.
pretty crazy how that stuff actually works out.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't think they do it for the prize money anyways,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I think maybe it would be more interesting if it was a bigger part that was a bigger part of the
yeah.
whole thing, you know?
I'm trying to see it. How much do G League players even make? I mean, this this is probably not the best topic to even talk about, but I'm saying like when you sign like a G League, like Mac McClung had with the Chicago Bulls, 106 106K was his salary for signing with the Bulls. He made 5,000 with the Lakers. Like, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. Next topic, real quick, rapid fire. We talked a little bit about the Toronto Raptors, but since the last time we connected, Fran VanVleet rejected a $114 million contract extension offer before the start of the season with the Toronto Raptors. So he bet on himself, and now he's underperforming. Jeff, what do you think about this?
Well, I guess that's where it is kind of like what I was trying to get at when I said like it's a little bit of a panic time earlier in the segment. In our topics is that Fred Van Vliet has been a little bit more vocal about the situation. He's even talked about in his situation where he feels like a lot of the numbers that he's getting is predicated on the fact that he's not getting the ball, which i.e. means he's not the focal point of the
Yeah.
offense as much as he used to be. And granted, there's a real reason why. It's because Siakam is just progressing further beyond him at this moment, and
Yeah.
it only makes sense to go through Siakam for the offense.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, I'm interested to see how much Fred actually gets. If this decision was a smart decision or if he fumbled the bag. Um, Lastly,
May
or
have fumbled the bag.
yeah,
May have fumbled the bag. But you know, it's funny. I actually saw something on the podcast No Dunks where they were joking about, I hate to be the next team that has to pay Fred VanVleet, because
yeah,
you're going to have to overpay.
yeah. That's that's going to be a little interesting to see what happens. He's a tough guy to even like we talked about a little bit earlier. He's a tough guy to have on your team because he's 6'1", and especially nowadays, point guards are becoming 6'8", 6'7",
Absolutely.
6'6", and also
Yeah,
obsolete.
that at
And
that
so
side,
yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
so I was even surprised with Jalen Brunson being like a 6 foot guard. Maybe he's a little bit shorter actually, but actually being able to be effective. So how long is that going to last? Who knows? Especially now he's not effective on the defensive end, but we'll see. Lastly,
Keep in
I-
keep in mind too, he's going into this free agent a really really weak free agency
yeah,
class,
it's true.
and there's definitely to be someone that's looking for a point guard at this point.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I forgot about the how weak free agency actually is now. It's really bad. So got to be a lot of trades. Lastly, I want to get your thoughts on. We haven't talked about it yet. The Kevin Durant situation, where now he is out for at least a month with an MCL sprain. Jeff, what do you think about this situation? How is this going to affect the Nets? We don't have to go too long, but you know, as our Nets expert here, what are your thoughts on this?
They're better. My first initial thought was like, God damn, not again. Like, but when the dust started to clear, you started to just realize like, um, they're better suited this year than they were last year to sustain something like this. So I was a little bit more comfortable going into this situation. But does that make me not concerned? No, I am still concerned. I think this will be a good time to hold the microscope on everyone on the team right now because we already know what KD brings. We
Yeah.
already know what, even to a degree, we know what Kyrie brings. It's time for everyone from top to from bottom down, bottom up from that point on to prove why they're here. Like even though Nick Claxton is having an extremely great season to start, right? You want to see if even with KD off the floor, is this still sustainable for you? Because that will
Hmm.
answer a lot of questions for us for the long terms, right? Ben Simmons, man, like Ben Simmons. Back to what I said about like the quasi star thing. He's a quasi star, correct, and for him starring in his role, but it shouldn't be like pulling teeth to ask for the bare minimum
Hmm.
out of Ben Simmons. And I would rather, and there's always that quote that floats around on, uh, even before NBA Twitter was a thing, like, of like Kobe would say, like, I'd rather take like a whole bunch of shots and miss them all than take 3 shots, miss them, and not take any for the rest of the game. You know, it's
Hmm.
a mindset thing. I don't know how he gets back to that. It is getting a little repetitive and tiring hearing him say the same thing. I just got to be me. I can do this. I could get to the rim. Like, I got to be aggressive. Like, you remember how last year the key word was ramp up? Like, that's now the key words that come up for Ben Simmons and this team is
Yeah.
him having to be aggressive. So but I think that they right the ship. I looked at the schedule. There is some there is some difficult matchups, but there is some softer landings. Um, this game on Sunday against the Thunder is a good place for them to assess like how effective they are. This is a team that is surging, that is getting a lot more confident by the day. So, and they're young. So, like,
Hmm.
you as a veteran team have to go out there and prove that you guys know what you're doing out there. And if they lose this game, I think it won't be a panic, but it will be heading towards where I think Katie has the same mindset that he was thinking of
Mm.
last year, where he said that 11 game losing streak made him question the team. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, one very well said. The only thing I really want to touch on was you talked about like Ben Simmons of how he's, you interview him and he says all the right things. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and yet when he actually plays, he doesn't do it. And it's definitely seems like it's a mental thing. I thought it was pretty interesting of how, especially in the off season, when he was on the Old Man the Three, JJ Redick's podcast, and he's talking about, and I think JJ specifically asked him, so are you gonna take threes
exactly
this season? Are you gonna take threes this season? He was like, damn, I have to if we want to win, kind of thing. And next thing you know, I don't think has he taken a three this season.
He's not taking a three. It's bordering on the line of being like a pathological liar. Because he'll say these things with great confidence while he's not playing, and then do the complete opposite of it. Either that or he's a sociopath,
I think it's definitely just like it's just a confidence thing, because like he knows what he needs to do, like he knows what he has to do and all that. It's just that for some reason his mental just kind of stops him from doing that, which is kind of crazy. And I think we talked about it a million times. He doesn't actually need to shoot threes, but you want him to be more aggressive, and his passing looks great. The guy can pass, but
he can.
Yeah, you just want him to actually be aggressive and actually go for layups. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's crazy that even layups is the thing that is blocking him right now.
So if he can overcome that, Nets are gonna be looking pretty nice. But even without that, they're still looking really nice with Kevin Durant. But hopefully, speedy recovery for him. That's all I got, Jeff. Do you have anything you want to say before we call it an episode?
No, I think that's it. It was a beautiful episode.
Yeah, man. I'm happy
being back.
Exactly. I'm happy back to back. We're actually being more consistent now. We're gonna actually, like we're saying, we have our plan to just continue going, making the podcast even better going forward. For all the listeners, let us know what you think. Tell us how we can actually improve going forward, because we do this for fun, but we also want to be good at it. So let us know how we can improve, and we're gonna be opposite of Ben Simmons. We're actually gonna do what we gotta do, but
put in that work. That work.
Exactly, put in that work. So this has been a good one, Jeff. This has been episode 46.
Peace.